In one of the recent videos here, I showed the process of me trying out genuine gold leaf over acrylic painting for the first time ever, and it went okay. Mistakes were made. Eventually, somehow, it ended up all working out, but gold leaf is a very prissy medium, and it got me thinking, what if there is an option to use a material that looks almost like gold leaf, but is much easier to apply? Something maybe that can be brushed on the painting very simply, very quickly, very gracefully. And I'm thinking maybe I have found it. This here is a liquid leaf. So today, for the first time ever, I'm going to use this to enhance my acrylic painting just a tiny bit. But first, I'm actually going to show you the entire process of creating my painting from start to finish. And I have selected succulents as a subject of today's painting. Welcome to the studio. I'm Anastasia Mack, and vivid, expressive acrylic painting makes me happy and calms down my brain, and hopefully it does the same for you too. Let's go ahead and see what kind of mess I can get myself into today, shall we? So one of the most memorable days this year sparked the inspiration for this painting. It was a beautiful sunny Saturday back in May, and we were strolling through Mexico City's San Angel neighborhood. In the park was a vibrant art market with lots of color, festive crowds, and the smell of street food filled the air. Then we walk into this big colonial church to admire the architecture, but instead, in the courtyard, we find a huge cactus bazaar. There are aisles and aisles of vendors selling colorful succulents in every shape and size. I've never seen anything like it, and suddenly I wish I could fill my suitcase with them for the trip home. Since I couldn't, painting them felt like the next best thing. I started this piece on an art panel toned with red orangish transparent color, as I usually do, and then I created a composition outline of my painting sketch. After that, I went in with darker earthy tones to lay down some base color on my piece, and I'm also including darker vibrant tones because ultimately I want this painting to be full of vibrancy and contrast. My goal for the vibrant high chroma colors in this piece is to be violet, turquoise, vivid green, and red, with the neutral and semi-neutral colors being earthy beige, gray, and orangish pink, light shade for the sky. Here I am starting to lighten up the bright areas of my succulent plants. My expressive style finds it important to include a variety of tones within each plant, kind of like a mosaic pattern. So instead of making each succulent all purple or all turquoise, you can see I'm being a little bit playful within its leaves and shadow and light. Selective light color over dark always offers the best opportunity for your art piece to pop. Now I'm including a bunch of brushstroke paint dabs to mimic earth, rocks, and all kinds of stuff that you find on the ground in the desert. Turquoise shades together with orange or red are opposites on the color wheel. That means they're complementary colors and look really nicely next to one another. By the way, if you're enjoying watching this painting style come together, check out my website for more art and art instruction. And please do add yourself to the mailing list where you can even get a little freebie. Currently, my freebie is a list of painting supplies and a mini color lesson, but that changes depending on the season. Now I'm tying the painting together with the last layer of brush strokes, and this is the point in art making where I squint to make sure that the painting looks cohesive and there's no patchy contrast in the piece that I may need to cover up. The painting is just about all done and it is ready to go on my table now. It took a few days of filming, presented to you in only 5 minutes. I'm adding a few lines with a paint pen for that extra enhancement. By the way, if you'd like to rock the paint pen over your acrylic painting, check out my helpful tips on using the Posca pen over acrylics here on my YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description for you. And here is what my painting looks like so far. It is perfectly imperfect, and the red parts of the flowers right here is where I plan on testing my liquid leaf to enhance them with a little bit of gold. I've got my liquid leaf ready to go, as well as my brush. It's an older thin brush, so that way in case it gets ruined, I'm not going to be too sad about it. I can just throw it out. The deep red color is actually quite beautiful as it sits against the turquoise sky, and perhaps enhancing this color with gold will change the balance of the value contrast in this painting. And I'm going to tell you that my aim is to do very, very subtle addition of the gold enhancements in this piece. The most important thing when testing these materials is to not go overboard. So I'm not about to go gold crazy here. I'm just going to do small enhancements to offer the painting just a little bit of luster, a little bit of shiny pizzazz. The gold is looking bronze right about now because it is not mixed up. So the liquidy part has settled on top where the solid part has settled on the bottom. So I'm going to take this brush and stir it real quick. And as I'm stirring it, I can feel the solids coming up from the bottom. And make sure you have a paper towel ready to clean this off. So now it's starting to look more even, more gold, and it also really smells right now. This is a solvent-based paint, so it is just about as stinky as you would expect the metallic marker to be. The vapor of it is probably somewhat harmful, keep that in mind. Don't sniff it. This paint really does look like metal. It's amazing. I'm gonna take a pause and put this under the light so you can see this beauty here. I mean, this is great. It's just as shiny as real gold leaf with a lot less work. Wow. I'm going to finish off this application, but this process is so fast that I'm going to be done in 1 more minute here. Liquid Leaf is living up to its name. Here's a closer view of how this is going on. This product is amazing. There are probably some downsides to it, and I'm probably going to learn about them, but so far, I just don't see any downsides to using this product in place of gold leaf. I suppose if you spill this, it's going to be really hard to remove, so be careful when you are using this. Keep it away from your phone, from anything that is valuable. Any other artwork, you don't want to get covered with a solvent-based gold color. And of course, if you spill this on a table, it will probably ruin the table too. All right, one more little enhancement here. This is fabulous. I am done, and truly, I don't want to do any more addition of gold to this painting. Otherwise, it's going to be too much. But what I'm going to do now is quickly try to rinse out my brush with mineral spirit. Actually, I have baby oil specifically for brush cleaning, so that may work. Or if it doesn't get cleaned out, it's gonna be going into the garbage bin. So I'm gonna try that now. Yay! So baby oil and paper towel managed to remove all the gunk off this brush, so I can use it again for this liquid leafing process. And it even smells good too. It smells like a clean baby. And the last thing to consider with this project, a very important thing, is varnishing. This is a solvent-based paint, which means it's not water-based, it's oily. So it needs to be varnished with a oil-based varnish. Not varnishing it, I'm pretty certain, is not an option because this paint contains metallic pieces, and unless the metal is pure gold, there's a chance that it will tarnish after a certain amount of time of being exposed to oxygen, which is called oxidation. So to prevent the metal going dull, it needs to be sealed. Some of the descriptions of this paint mentioned that it was okay to actually seal it with water-based varnish, but I do not believe it. And to decide on the type of varnish to use, I did a test. And I did a test with this paint a month and a half ago. So it had a chance to sit around and cook, so to speak, for a month. Here are the results of my test. Half of this piece is covered with water-based varnish, and the other half is covered with oil-based varnish. Hopefully you can see which one is which. And I don't know if you can see it by me showing it to you on camera, but water-based varnish right here has a lot of uneven areas because water-based varnish pulls in certain places. It doesn't go on top of oil, it beads and pulls. So the overall look is rather patchy and just not pretty in my opinion. Looks like it's tarnished. But oil-based varnish did quite well with this paint. It seems to be consistent and solid and even, and it has retained its shine at least for the last couple of months. So I'm of course going to go with oil-based varnish for this piece. But there's another consideration. Because I have paint pen on my art, I cannot just brush the varnish on. I have to spray on the first coat of varnish on this piece, and then the second coat can be brushed on. So for my first coat, I'm going to use this golden spray varnish. It is mineral spirit based satin. I've had it sitting in my studio for a while. Hopefully it's still okay, but I think it'll be fine. And for my second coat, I am going to brush on this Gamvar gloss varnish, which will give it a nice consistent sheen. And this one takes a few days to dry. I usually try to allow 3 or 4 days for the drying time of this guy. And I'm gonna leave my painting sitting while it dries and then later put a frame on it. Liquid leaf paint is already dry, by the way. It dries so fast, it's amazing. The spray varnish has dried, so far so good. The liquid leaf is still quite shiny, so it hasn't killed it yet. And now it's time for the brush on oil varnish. Now, in case it's not obvious, the brush on oil varnish makes everything around you oily. It's probably going to spill over on the table, so if you use it, be sure that you have the area protected. And it doesn't take a lot of it at all to cover the painting. And I'm a little nervous. I'm hoping it doesn't disturb my paint pen. Even though I have sprayed it, I'm still a little bit nervous about it. But it's looking good so far. All it takes is a super thin coat. And here's the final look, all done. The paint pen lines stayed intact, which makes me really happy, and also the liquid leaf stayed intact. It is shiny, less shiny right now that the varnish hasn't dried yet, but I'm going to put it down and let it dry for a few days. And one thing to note, with oil-based varnish, you want to have it drying somewhere away from where you breathe everyday air. So stash it into a faraway place so that way it dries without giving you all the fumes. It doesn't really smell, I just know that the fumes of this varnish are not quite good for you. This brush also has to be cleaned with mineral spirits. For larger brushes, I don't use baby oil. I usually use either vegetable oil or Gumbar mineral spirit, and sometimes Murphy's oil soap is effective with cleaning as well. Here is my finished and framed painting. I think it looks pretty nice. The varnish had had a chance to dry for 10 days now, and here is the result. I do believe it's just a tad less shiny than genuine gold leaf, and I think what made it slightly dull in the end was the spray varnish that I used. The spray varnish needed to be used to cover up the paint pen lines to make sure that they don't smear, but next time I may experiment with this golden paint without using the paint pen so that I can just put on oil-based brush varnish on top of this piece. Thanks for joining me for yet another painting-related experiment. I always love sharing my process with you guys. And if you enjoyed watching this, check out my other video right here. I look forward to seeing you there.